Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. It's unpleasant to meet Karen somewhere in a store, but imagine Karen as your employee. Let's start with a story in which our OP found himself in exactly this situation. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with a turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Entitled Coworker Quits. I, 20-year-old female, have a lot of horror stories about this coworker, but this one's the most confusing one. Let's call her Karen, 28-year-old female. Some context before this bit. I used to work at a semi-fine dining steak place. We hold a tight ship in regards to how we greet, hospitality, menu items, etc. I became lead trainer in sales at one point. Our restaurant was performance-based, so you had to work for good sections and big parties. Karen took a year break off of serving and decided to come back, but still had to do the 5-day training process since she was gone for so long. I soon found she was a nightmare to work with. After multiple failed tests, lots of coaching, and hard work, she finally passed training. She had the mindset of, I've been here longer than you and I'm older than you, so I don't have to listen to you anymore. Well, as lead trainer, it's my job to coach and point out things I see wrong, kindly of course. At one point, she reported me to management for bullying and harassment, which went nowhere. We were put on separate shifts due to us complaining about one another until one day, I got requested for a party of 40 in the morning. It was on a Monday, which I normally don't work, but I was requested, so I happily agree. Karen works Monday, so she comes up to me as I'm setting up. Karen, why are you setting up for my party? Me, puzzled. I'm sorry? Karen, I deserve this party. You weren't even supposed to work today. Me, this party requested me, so I came in. I won't be too much in your hair, I promise. Karen, that doesn't matter. Mondays are my days, and they should be my table. Besides, I've been here for longer. I deserve this table. Me, we're performance-based, not by time spent. I'm sorry that they requested me. I'd suggest going to management if you have an issue. Karen storms off in a huff, and I just keep setting up. My party comes in, I take care of them, and they tip me $300. Awesome. I go to do my checkout paperwork and count my money as Karen approaches me on the prowl. Karen, so where's my tip share? Me, probably on your checkout. Karen, don't get smart with me. I want a share of the money from your table. I stand there, confused. Why? Karen then explodes. I ran a tray of your food, I got one of your people an iced tea, and it was supposed to be my table, and you took it from me. I saw the tips you made, and I want $100 of it. It took me everything in my body not to burst out laughing. That's the most insane thing I've ever heard. But I kept a calm face. Me, I won't be doing that. Take it up with management. Karen storms off again, and I hear her yelling from the kitchen. My coworkers look just as puzzled as I am. After about 10 minutes of yelling, I see her storm out of the restaurant and flip me the bird. I ask my manager what happened. She quit. Said all of this was unfair and a 20-year-old shouldn't get priority over her, and it was unfair that you get all the good tables. Manager and I talk about it, and I express my empathy and apologies since it was kind of my fault. All manager said was, don't be sorry. She never understood the way we do things. I don't even know why they let her be hired back. You're totally fine. You deserved those tips. Good riddance. Well, good riddance, Karen, I guess. I was thinking Karen was older, but no, 8 years? She's only 8 years older than you? Must be where she got her toddler tantrum behavior. I'm guessing your coworkers and managers are glad they don't have to deal with her toxicity anymore. And our second story. Armed guard duty with broken shooting arm. Let's do it. So backstory. Around the 2013 timeframe, I was stationed at a recently shut down U.S. Army garrison in South Korea. I was attached to a unit known as United Nations Command Honor Guard, UNCHG. This was a multinational honor guard with representative military branches from a few different countries all living together. We did ceremonies for all bigwigs that came to the country, as well as armed security for very sensitive buildings on the installation. Those of us in the U.S. Army, along with our South Korea counterparts, were solely responsible for the guard work. I'll refrain from using certain buildings by name as they were highly sensitive buildings requiring a lot of security. They're more like underground bunkers for doomsday situations with windows and doors painted on to fool any satellites. This is where my story begins. I had broken my hand and arm shortly after arriving in Korea through faults of my own. I was in a hard cast and was deemed unable to perform armed guard or ceremonies until I healed. So I primarily ran radio checks and did patrolling rounds to catch anyone sleeping on duty. On this particular day, I was supposed to be off duty, but I was awoken by the sergeant of the guard, who was also my squad leader. We'll call him Sergeant K. He had an M9 and 2 mags and a pistol belt in hand. Before I can muster the words to explain I'm off, I'm informed that there is someone special in town and we must up the guards count. I try to explain there's no way in hell I can safely pull armed guard duty with a broken shooting hand and arm. At this point, I was technically considered unqualified for the M9 since I hadn't been to the shooting range for it in months. He tells me just take it and go by the book. Effing roger that, Sergeant. I was put into a building that has a foot-thick vault door made of steel that leads to a protected guard booth. There's another door of equal size that leads to stairs that go to an underground tunnel that leads to a network of conference rooms, as well as a large command hub. I've been on duty for around 2 hours at this station, reading over the standard operating procedure, SOP, for this particular hub. I noticed the book has a typo that clearly states only visitors that possess X color badge with X level security clearance are permitted access to this facility, when in reality it should have stated only X at minimum level security clearance may access, and all colors indicating higher security clearance are allowed access as well. In walks this British Army general in plain clothes. I ask for military ID to confirm who he is. He responds in good fashion, "I shall certainly not have to show you who I am." I calmly stare that this is the rule, and as I'm not accustomed to him, I can't take his word. He finally shows me his access badge, which unfortunately for him is the highest level he's able to get. I show him the book and clearly point that he can't access this facility unless he only has X clearance and no higher. The look on his face was almost too much to keep from laughing and breaking composure. He turns brightly red and walks out. I'm sure thinking I'm dim-witted. 10 minutes later, I have a royalty PO'd Sergeant First Class, E7, pounding his fist on my ballistic glass window. He's screaming, "Open the GD door, specialist, before I skull drag you through this window." Now, I've met this man before, and he's typically a nice guy and helpful, but he's just found out I refused the British Army envoy access to the command meeting. This particular sergeant is the paper jockey for the 4-star general of the entire Korean Peninsula and Asian theater. He's been sent by the general's orders to adjust me. I asked to see the sergeant's security access before I open the door to get skull dragged. Unfortunately for him, the book says he needs X and he has higher than X, so I refused. About 20 minutes later, I have the entirety of my command staff in the room with me screaming and hollering, threatening to chapter me out for disobedience. I calmly ask to explain my actions and the circumstances. The sergeant from earlier arrives just in time for the explanation. He's still beet red and fuming to high hell. I open the book and point at it and tell them I went by the book as ordered to by Sergeant K, and the book states that only X was allowed, and as stupid and ridiculous as it sounded, the book says anyone with a higher clearance was not authorized. The looks around this tiny room are of hysteria and defeat. The first one to laugh is the PO'd sergeant from earlier who took the book and trashed it in the burn box and walked out. My CO and XO and PL spent that night typing a new SOP for all gut stations, and Sergeant K was confined to pulling 24-hour guard shifts every other day for the week as punishment for making an unqualified and physically incapable shooter pull an armed guard shift. And I was exempted from guard duty until the cast came off. You ran it by the book, and you complied. They had to comply. Everything was rightly done, and they corrected the book's procedures as per SOP. I'm certain 1 or 2 of the officers got written up for gun decking because they should have caught the errors in the book. And our last story. How I took away part of my neighbor's property. My husband and I bought a new build house in the summer last year. At the time, we didn't know that someone had purchased 5 houses on our street. Every other house on our street belongs to this person, and he rents them out. It's taken him a long time to get actual renters in the property, so we didn't really think much of it until this summer. On our corner, our lot is the largest, and it looks kind of like a pie wedge, with our driveway out front being the tip and the broader piece in the back bumping up to a hill and city utility easement. Our neighbors to the right of us moved in about 4 months ago. They have a dog that they keep chained in the yard, and it breaks loose all the time. We installed cameras in the back because I have a reactive dog, and a few times we've been taking him out back on a leash, and the dog has come running up, and there have been a few incidents. We've talked to the owner about it, but nothing's really changed. Now their kids are playing in our yard all the time because the neighbors that moved in to the left of us also have kids. They ride their mini four-wheelers through the yard and destroying the lawn sprinkler system. We talked to their parents, and they said they'd try to keep their kids out of our yard, but kids will be kids. They don't really listen, and I don't really feel like it's my place to go out there and tell them they need to get off our lawn. Man, I feel really old writing that. I asked a few fencing companies out to take a look at how much it'd cost to put a fence up. Because of our property line, our fence would look like it was almost partially in their backyards. This has already been somewhat of an issue because the hill behind our development washed out and covered the lawns in mud, and my husband has gone out to rake the mud once it dried, and the renters have complained about us being in their yard. The houses on either side of us have the smallest lots in our development. This would reduce the amount of yard space the kids have, which makes me feel kind of bad, but I don't want to not have our fence to the property line and the landlord put fencing up to ours and essentially claim those portions of our property in doing so. It seems kind of like a headache. The turning point was when I asked the kids not to dig up my lawn and they ignored me. When I kicked them out, the mom came and started threatening to call the police and remembered that their husband was a lawyer. I had no choice but to hire a surveyor to confirm our boundaries, to make things right. After that, the construction started. They threatened almost every day while the fence took away their play area yard by yard, but the law was on my side. Despite the lawyer husband, I had no problems, and now my dogs are doing great, and I have less to worry about. So that's a win. The OP tolerated it longer than he should have. If the neighbors had behaved less rudely, it would have been possible to avoid installing a fence. Anyway, it's better this way than to watch your territory all day long and worry that children will break something or get hurt on your property. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.